business in general. So, Tammy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Tammy. I live in Springfield, Mass. I got into this credit world of credit because I didn't quite understand it. My personal credit was took a really hard beating due to a divorce, and I was able to buy my first home with a 620, which, that was in 2016 when the rates weren't, crazy. And my mortgage was great and I wanted to get solar, and then I realized I didn't have a 650, a personal 650 credit score. Um, I didn't realize that I needed to have credit cards. So there was so much more to learn. And then I just started reaching out to people who were doing credit and realized this is something that my community here in Springfield, Mass really needed, just to at least understand and be educated, um, for personal credit that then can turn into business credit.
Awesome. That's super cool. And I love that the first thing you thought of, like once you kind of open the door, you're like, hey, wait a second, everybody should know about this, right? Because it's definitely not something that's taught in schools. Nobody knows anything about credit cards in schools. Um,
Correct.
so that's awesome. So what are you? I mean, so you mentioned divorce. I know a lot of people come out of divorces with just like a completely trashed credit report. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with like they've got shared credit cards, they got to close a bunch
Yes.
of accounts, they have like somebody is spiteful and didn't make payments and on a shared mortgage, all kinds of things. I'm sure you've seen. I'm sure you've experienced some of it yourself. And so tell us a little bit about like the the most common pitfalls, I guess, when it comes to using personal credit as a way to get ahead, right? Because a lot of times you're like, oh well, especially flippers, right? People that are doing fix and flips, or they're starting a small business. They'll start off, they'll use their personal credit, they'll use a card, and they're like, I'm only using this card for business, and it's fine. But it's all showing up on their personal credit report, obviously. So, what are some like the major most common things that you see that impact people's ability to get approved for like business credit later on, and then some of the ways to get around that to kind of get ahead of it.
So the common thing that I have seen. Well, first let's go back. So if someone's in the process or is married, and everyone used to say, "Oh, put add your husband on your card if you have a good payment, help him build his credit, or help your wife build her credit." That's
Hmm.
not always the best practice. Um, and if you are getting a divorce before you file, make sure you separate um, your accounts, because once you file, everything's kind of set in stone. Nothing can be changed. So that's first and foremost. Make sure you separate your stuff if you're moving forward to being divorced. Um, so personally, me personally, right? So we're going to go based on what I'm going through at the moment. So this is
Hmm.
my own personal business. I cannot get business funding at the moment because my personal credit is still, I'm still working on it. When I was finally divorced, he left me with 21 collections, 16 charge offs, and a lot of late payments that he was supposed to pay. And 7 years later, I didn't realize that they weren't taken care of because I didn't run credit. I had my house, I had my car, I didn't need anything else. My bills were
Hmm.
paid. Um, so moving forward into building my own business, I have my LLC and I'm moving forward, but my personal credit is affecting the business credit because that's where you're starting with your personal credit. So if you know that you have late payments and collections, take care of that first. And the other thing that I've seen is that people are using personal credit for their business funding or business
Hmm.
funding for personal use. And you shouldn't be doing that. And that's where people are falling behind. The credit cards for business is now being used to, you know, go grocery shopping because of the way, the economy is. That's something that is a practice that you shouldn't be doing. So that's where people are falling short with that.
Okay, gotcha.
Keep it separate. Always keep it
Hmm.
separate.
So keeping it separate, very important. Um, the importance of like not so like your situation specifically stems from your divorce, but a lot
Mhm.
of people end up in situations where the credit isn't good because they don't know how to take care of it.
Yes.
it's like a whole pet, right? It's like you get a dog, you don't know anything about dogs. Like you can get your dog sick and hurt because you don't know anything. It's the
Correct.
same thing with your credit report.
Yeah.
And it's
So
crazy because this is like potentially one of the most impactful things about your identity as you move forward in life. It's like, can I get a car loan? Can I get a house loan? Can I? You have to get your credit pulled to start utilities. Um,
correct.
and so, but it's not something that's really talked about. So tell us a little bit about the most common stuff that you see just from some of your clients that eh, if you didn't know it, you wouldn't know it, right? Does that make
Yep.
sense?
Yeah. So the most common thing that a lot of people don't know is that your credit um, is broken up in five different categories, right?
Hmm.
So the biggest category, which I don't even think a lot of people know, is your payment history. So your credit is made up 35% of your credit score is made up of your payment history, right? So one
Hmm.
late payment can drop your credit between 50 to 100 points, and it can stay on your credit report for 7 years. And a lot of people don't realize that. So if you compound more than one late payment on more than one card, that's definitely lowering your account. I'm
Hmm.
lowering your score, sorry. And then the next category, the biggest one, is a 30% is your credit card usage. So when you are over 30% on your credit cards, right? And I use Credit Karma a lot and only for their credit factors because it breaks it down really good. The key with that one is if your credit usage is over 30%, your credit is
Hmm.
going down. If your credit usage is under 30, your credit's going to go up. And not a lot of people understand that. So if you're taking out a $200 secure credit card, you don't want to use more than $20. Like you
Right.
want to keep it at that 10%. And then you want to pay it a week before it's due so that it's not totally going to the credit bureau. So then the next is the lifetime of your credit. So when people get credit cards or those store cards that they just cancel because they don't go to that store anymore, that hurts you. That's
Hmm.
15%. That makes it 50%. So your life of your credit, right? So you want to have at least 12 years of um, credit background.
Okay.
And then if you run your credit. So every time you go to a car dealership and they run your credit and you have bad credit and they run it 15 times to try to find you someone to loan you, that's 10%. So that's taking every time that they run your credit, it's lowering your credit score by 10%. And then a mix of credit. So
Hmm.
they want 10% of that is having like a credit card and a revolving loan. So you have to have all these things in place and in good standings to have that good credit score.
Right.
And I think that's what people they're not educated about. They don't
Hmm.
realize that it's really broken down in five different categories, and all of them have to be in good standings in order to
Hmm.
move forward. And then the other thing is your addresses. So if you have a whole bunch of addresses linked to your credit report, that's lowering it as well. So you would have to update your credit report. Every person has the right to have their information correct. So if you have two different jobs on there with four different addresses and a whole bunch of different phone numbers, you want to send them a letter to update your address in where you're working and all that. So that way that can boost someone's credit anywhere from 25 to 50 points.
Just by having those addresses removed.
Correct. Yep. And
Wow.
inquiries.
Why
Yeah.
why is that? Why is the with the addresses?
So I think the reason why I was told, from what I've learned from my researches,
Hmm.
is that it keeps things open, and it keeps you open for fraud.
Okay, so
So
it's like a risk factor almost.
correct, right.
Okay,
So
interesting.
the credit bureau puts it on you as the person to keep your credit report clean,
Hmm.
right? So they don't do that. Even if it was verified and they know that you've moved, they're not removing anything.
Wow.
So, and
Okay.
when you pay a collection or when you pay, or if you do a soft or like a settlement on something,
Hmm.
the credit bureau is not responsible to remove that from your credit report. So then you have to clean those up. So
Hmm.
you definitely do have to clean up your credit report.
Okay.
Mhm.
Wow. Yeah, I knew they didn't remove it. There was one time I had a thing in collections. It was a textbook that I had rented for college, and I forgot that I rented it. And
Hmm.
then like I stopped using that email, and I guess that's where all the emails were going. Anyways, I was applying for a mortgage, and the loan officer was like, "Hey, you have this like $300 thing from like Book Bites on in collections." I'm like, I don't. Oh,
Right.
and so I had to call and pay it, but then I also had to get like a letter from them saying it had been paid in full so I could get that removed. So that was like my first time. Like it's sometimes it's just the small things like you just don't like remember or think about. So it's definitely really important to keep track of like those little miscellaneous bills that you don't think about.
Correct.
So
Auto pay.
what tools do you typically recommend for people that are looking to they don't have like there's nothing in collections, they don't have late fees, but they have like maybe they don't have a good mix of credit or they have like a really high utilization. What are some of the methods that you would use with your clients to help them kind of build their credit up from that?
So if they have like high utilization because of their credit cards or whatever
Mhm,
bills that they have, my first step is going to say, let's get you on a good budget. I'm going to ask them to pull at least 3 months of their bank statements. We're going to sit down and like really use paper, highlight, figure out where they can cut things out. And then we're
mhm,
going to grab all their credit cards or their statements and write down how much they owe, right? What their balance is, how much the interest rate is,
mhm,
and then we're going to realize, we're going to pay down the first one, the highest interest rates first, and then get them on a good standing,
mhm,
and then teach them once you pay off Capital One, you want to take that money that you were paying Capital One and put it towards Discover. And so a lot of people don't realize that they're like, oh yeah, that bill's paid, I got extra money. No, because you still have other creditors. So let's pay everything down, get you under
mhm.
that, because you don't want to close it either. A small balance is
Right,
okay, but we need to get you under that 30%
right.
so that we can start getting you a better credit score. And
Mhm,
honestly, I deal with a lot of people, especially in the city, who have no credit,
mhm,
like no credit at all. And when I say, oh, you got to get a secure credit card, they're like, oh, I don't want credit cards, they're bad. And I think that's another misinformation. Like credit cards aren't bad, it's just the way that you use them. So
right.
if you're not educated on how to use them, then they're bad. But you should definitely get a secure credit card that reports to all three credit bureaus.
Okay. And can you
Yep.
explain a little bit about what a secured credit card is for anybody that doesn't know?
Yeah, absolutely. So a secure credit card is something that you would apply for and you would put your own money on.
Mhm,
Some of them, so the secure credit card that I offer, you can go anywhere between $200 and 5,000, right? So
mhm,
based on what you're gonna use it for, I always tell, especially like my people in the city, if they say I don't have it and I just want something small, I always say do $200 because it's easy. Use it for gas for $20, and then I make sure that they set it up on the auto pay. Like
mhm,
that's a key as well. So that way we figure out when their due date's going to be. We set up on auto pay to go directly out once they get paid, and or don't be afraid to call your creditors and say, "Hey,
yep.
can I change my due date because I get paid biweekly or I get paid monthly?" So secure credit cards are really good as long as you're using them correctly.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. Awesome. So that's what you'd recommend for somebody that has like no credit or like a
Correct.
really bad mix of like there's not a lot of things reporting at all, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Cool. Do you get a lot of small business owners or like sole props, stuff like that, where people are like they're doing everything like kind of like we mentioned earlier, they're doing everything on their personal with a personal credit card. They don't have a any like business credit built up. How do you kind of break that link, right? Because it's hard sometimes if you got your one card, you're using it for everything for all
Mhm.
the business, and you only use it for the business. You're like, nah, I'm good. But business stuff can be expensive. I now have to go fix a roof and a ceiling in one of my rental properties. That's going to be expensive. I'm gonna throw it on a credit card, um, and then it'll buff out. But the like what do you do for people that are in that situation where they don't have a business credit card to throw that on, right?
Right. So I think that my first suggestion is why don't you have a business credit card if you're in
Mhm,
business, and how long have you been in business for? Um, a lot of business credit cards, they want you to have at least 6 months in business and making between 8,000 to 10,000 a month, and you have a 550 credit score. So the credit score is not a, it's not a high that you need to have, but everything else has to fall into place.
Hmm.
And if say you have to use your personal credit card um, to build that roof and do everything that you have, make sure you're keeping your receipts, right? Because then you
Hmm.
can say that this was for the business, so you can do it as a tax write-off, and then work
Right.
towards every step that you need to get a business, go to your bank, open up a business bank account, and then start building that, so that you can get equity, like, because it makes sense, right? It's easier as a business owner to not use your own money.
Right.
Right? So if you have everything in place, or if you're just starting out and you don't know what you need to do, talk to someone like me, do your research, let's figure it out. If we don't know the answer, I mean, we'll figure it out, but
Mhm.
get everything in place so that way you don't have to use your own money. That's the whole point of
Right.
doing a business, you know?
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Um, I think we have done like a really good job of hitting like the high points, like the basics of like the importance of taking care of our credit profile. If you don't have a credit profile because you've never used a credit card, you've never had like anything reporting at all, like it's important to get out there and start small, start somewhere where you like have control over it. My very first credit card had a $300 limit. It was with USAA, which is like the bank that I used. $300 limit. But I mean that was super helpful because I went from a like I now have like a bunch that have like $10,000 plus limits that I don't max out.
Right, right.
Because you don't want to do that. Now, so I know there are and this might not be your wheelhouse specifically. Do you do a lot of like building corporate credit, or do you mostly focus on the personal credit side?
I have been focusing on the personal credit side.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to getting to the business,
Hmm.
because I have a lot of people that have reached out and I want to help them. So
Right.
that's my next step.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm planning to do a similar call with my friend Ruel, who lives in Jacksonville, and he focuses entirely on the business credit side. So I'll get you guys
Oh.
connected, and it could be a little bit of a team up thing. He used to run a kind of a credit repair business like you're doing, and he's
Mhm.
actually exiting it right now. It's his first business exit. So that's really cool for him.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but yeah, I'd love to get you guys connected and see if that's something where like you can get you'll have clients needing credit repair. You'll get them to like a point where like, okay, great, now that your credit profile is fixed and you can go off and do better things. Like, hey, here's
Yes.
Ruel, here you go, here's the business
Absolutely,
credit
that
guy.
would be
So,
amazing. Because I have people that I can send to him today
mhm,
that I have on my list of, we're getting them ready to do that.
yeah,
They know what they need to do. I've let them know the bones of what they need to move forward.
right.
But getting them to that funding is what my next step is. So if you
Hmm.
can give me his information, I would love to send him, you
Absolutely. And
know.
I'm gonna after this gets pushed to YouTube, I'm gonna do a similar call with him for probably next week. So that'll be great.
Awesome.
So before we kind of come to a close, um, what what are some of your like what metrics do you track? Like, do you track, all right, I've fixed 800 million points of credit score, or what do you do to like feel good? Like, yeah, it feels good like helping people, but like what's the number on the whiteboard that says like when this number goes up, I'm doing good? What is that?
Um, I guess when people buy their homes, like a lot
Hmm.
of my clients want to buy homes. So I'm fairly, this is my first year in. I've had 4 customers that have graduated the program. Because again, it's not just credit repair. We have a savings that's built in, a
Like a
budgeting
whole
that's saved in.
personal
It's a
finance one
whole
stop shop.
personal everything.
Okay.
Um, and when I get to help them do their will, trust, and power of attorney, because after they buy their home, I explain to them, like, you have a home, you have kids, like, make sure you do this last step before you cancel our program. So I've had 4 successful homeowners.
Wow.
So,
That's
um,
awesome.
yeah, so that's my yes, we're there.
That's cool.
So, yep.
Awesome. So do you have like a team built out for that? Or like what is your, do you have a team or
So
is it
I
just
don't have
you?
a team yet. It's just me.
Hmm.
I have some realtors that have signed up with me.
Hmm.
Um, they're not ready to really bring customers on quite yet. I don't know if they're just kind of feeling it out for themselves first. And
Hmm.
I'm not pushy. When they're ready, they're ready.
Right.
And as long as they get to help who they want to help, I'm all set with that. It's really not about. I know everybody's in business to make money, right?
Hmm.
So me too. But um,
What?
I wanna help as well. Like, I donate
Hmm.
my time to help people as well. Like, I actually have a friend of mine who works in Springfield Housing and, with the shelters and people who need education on credit. So we are planning to, do a course to just
Cool.
help and
Hmm.
explain and it's really not about, bringing a customer on. If they need it and they can afford it, great, let's do it. But if I can help, like I had this Miss Jackson lady that sent me a message. My credit's this. I want to buy a house. I don't know what to do. So I'm looking at everything. I'm like, you have no credit cards. So I'm like, Miss Jackson, listen, I can send you my link to get a secure credit card or go to your bank, right? Make
Hmm.
sure, and I tell her, make sure that their secure credit cards report to all three credit bureaus. If it does, and she's out in Mississippi, so she was more comfortable dealing with someone face to face. She texted me 2 months later with a screenshot of her credit score being a 720. And that
Wow.
was I
Wow.
was like, and I made no money, but I felt so rich inside because
Hmm.
she's getting to the point that she needs. So,
That's so cool.
it's a mixture of good feelings. So the
Yeah.
bank account was good and, helping is good too.
That's awesome.
Yep.
All right, Tammy. So how do people get in touch with you? How do they get access to you, your course, your program?
Yep.
How do they get help?
So I'm on Facebook. I'm
Okay.
Tammy Billings under Facebook. I will also send you a link that you can, someone, if they want to, they can click on it and just put their information. It's just a really quick survey: name, phone number, email address, and do you know your credit score? And then it will come right to me in my email, and I'll give you a call, and we can get to work.
Awesome.
Yep.
Super cool. Well, Tammy, thank you for your time tonight. Is
Thank
this is a
you.
kind of a short call, but we've been playing calendar tag for I feel like months.
Yes, we have.
So I'm
We
glad that
have.
we finally were able to connect and hopefully somebody sees this and is like, that's what I need. That's like I'm a responsible person. I just don't know what I don't know. And Tammy can help me out. So
Yeah. And
if
it's
that's
okay because
you,
life is life. Life
yeah,
happens. So
for sure.
I always tell everybody bad credit happens to good people all the time.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Well, hey, if that's you guys, if you're watching this, reach out to Tammy on Facebook, Tammy Billings. And then go to her website. I'll have it in the corner here. And go get your credit fixed. Go buy yourself a house. Go get yourself some business credit and get good. So, all right. Well, thanks, Tammy.
thanks. Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye.